Hello and welcome back to the RinkMasters Podcast. My name is Tyler Krugman. I'm going to be your host today. So unfortunately today, Noah could not make it. He had something pop up. So today, I'm going to be honored to be joined by my friend Chris Penner. He's also a diehard Calgary Flames fan, as you can see in the championship banner behind him. So Chris, how about you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Chris, 20 years old. From Kamloops, BC, so I'm sure you guys will see me on if we do a Kamloops Blazers breakdown. A little bit about me with like hockey and stuff. I've played hockey basically my whole life until kind of injuries took over. So there's that. But my biggest thing with being a Flames fan was Jerome McGinley was my idol my whole life. He was obviously a Kamloops Blazer. Played here, I believe, won one or two Memorial Cups with the Blazers when they won 3 back there in the mid-'90s. So, he's been my idol ever since, and probably the best Flame to ever put on the jersey. So there's that, and that's basically why I'm a diehard Flames fan. I was actually able to meet Jerome in Kamloops at the Blazers hockey school. Got him to sign one of my hats and sticks. That was pretty awesome. To meet, your idol in the hockey world. So that's a little bit about me.
It's definitely really cool. It's awesome when you get that chance to meet those heroes you grew up watching. All right, so today we are going to be doing our Calgary Flames breakdown, and once we're done that, if you stay tuned, I have my interview with Portland Winterhawks forward Mason Mannek. That interview went really good, so I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And Mason's a great guy, and I think you're going to love it. So back to the Calgary Flames. They've been busy this offseason, right, Chris? Like they've addressed every need that I think they needed to. Getting Jacob Markstrom at 6 for 6 was huge. Bringing in Chris Tanev to fill up the top 4. Depth guys, Josh Levo, Joachim Nordstrom, Dominic Simon, for a team that, for the most part, I would consider to be a contender, especially now with the moves that they've made. Right now the projected cap space is $1 million. And the main issue we know is they've been struggling to make a deep run. So maybe let's just go over these key signings and let's unpack what we've got here. Yeah,
no, definitely. We want to start with Jacob Markstrom. I guess that's the big one. Definitely the day one signing. I guess the first thing I'll say about Markstrom is we know there's a lot of team interested in him. And I think the thing that makes it big is Edmonton wanted him too. And we know Edmonton's goaltending's been, rather shaky at times. And to see that he took less money purportedly to come to Calgary than he did to Edmonton, I mean, I think that says a lot of what he wants and what he sees in the team. And, he's been super good in Vancouver when he was there. I mean, what can you say? I know watching Flames games against the Canucks on Saturday nights, even in person, I knew if we were going to outshoot him and stuff, we're going to have to beat Markstrom though. Doesn't matter if we outplay him. Markstrom's going to be back there and he's going to allow maybe 2 or 3. So you got to capitalize on your chances against Markstrom. And, he's been great. So I'm really excited about that, the signing of Markstrom, and hopefully he's the piece of net that we need since we've had Mika Kiprusoff. It's really been a disaster since then. So.
Markstrom, he is honestly a true beast in the net. And I know, I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but I was reading into it, and Jacob Markstrom, I think, had the highest save percentage in terms of shots that he's seen. So it's pretty incredible. So if Markstrom can see it, he's going to stop it. And I think for Calgary, I think that's a huge bonus. I know they thought for a little while that Big Save Dave Riddick was going to be that guy. And unfortunately, he didn't really pan out. But fortunately for the Calgary Flames, he is an excellent backup to Jacob Markstrom, which I feel that gives them a really solid tandem between the pipes going forward. So looking at the defense, Chris Tanev, injuries have definitely been my biggest takeaway from Chris Tanev going back to his Vancouver days. If he can stay healthy, this is an excellent pickup for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, no, definitely. Injuries have definitely been a big concern for Tanev. You never really see him play an 82-game season. which is obviously what you want, especially a right shot defenseman too. They're tough to come by in the NHL these days for, whatever reason. That's why in Calgary we had TJ Brody playing the right side with Giordano, as Brody being a left shot. But that's huge with Tanev. He's a big shot blocker, defensive defenseman. I assume he's going to be playing with Noah Hannafin. And I think this could be the guy with Noah Hannafin that he can maybe really get his game going, because we looked at him when he was young, playing with the U.S. national team and stuff. He was going to be a stud when Carolina brought him up. And maybe he can reach that potential knowing he's got that stay-at-home defenseman next to him in Chris Tanev. So I think that could be really big for him, because you got to remember, Hannafin's still only 23 years old. So he's still got a lot of years ahead of him. So I think that could be really big for his growth as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you made, because I know with Noah Hannafin, me and Noah have talked about it with other defensemen in the NHL that, there's a lot of pressure on them, right? Like offensively, the game comes easier to these guys. Defensively, the guys we're trying to defend are so much faster, so much more skilled. Their passes are so crisp. So it's definitely bringing in a guy like Tanev to really mentor Noah Hannafin and help his game mature is going to be a huge bonus for the Calgary Flames. And one's got to wonder, that's the exact reason why they went out to sign Chris Tanev.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And it also gives Rasmus Andersson a chance to play top minutes on a full-time basis with Mark Giordano. I think he's really gonna thrive, because it was kind of off and on. He would either play on the top pairing with Giordano when we were struggling and stuff, and we needed to switch up, or he was playing on the bottom pairing with say Oliver Shillington or something like that. So I think him knowing that he's going to get top minutes will really help his confidence and hopefully get his game growing as well. So.
Well, yeah, and consistency.
It's exciting.
Oh, definitely. And consistency is a real huge thing. And I know for a young guy like Rasmus Andersson, they've invested into him for $4 million, a little over that, for 6 years. And so, they're definitely banking on him being that bargain contract for the top four. But if you provide the consistency, you give him the opportunity, he's definitely going to blossom. And I've liked what I've seen about him is, for being a bigger guy, his skating is very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, he's a great skater. I've watched him all these games, and I think that's one of the underrated things about Anderson that not a lot of people know is he's a really good skater, and he's a damn well good competitor too. You'll see him fighting in corners, pushing guys out front of the net. He's really feisty and stuff. So that's what I really like. And he's got an absolute cannon of a shot too on the power play.
Oh yeah.
So I think as he can unleash that on probably the second unit this year, I think we could see maybe 10 goals out of him this year. That might be pushing it, but if he gets enough power play time, there's definitely a chance.
Oh yeah, the potential is certainly there. And so we're going to look over at the depth signings that they have, that the True Living's made. Josh Levo, up until he got that pretty severe knee injury, he was looking like really solid third-line contributor for the Vancouver Canucks. You guys got him for substantially less than what the Canucks were paying him. What are your thoughts on a guy like Levo coming into the lineup? As a Calgary Flames fan, what do you expect him to do, and what role do you think he's going to play, and how is he going to really help round out that bottom six?
Yeah, no, that's huge. With a guy, he's still decently young. He can, blossom. He could probably play on the third line. Mm-hmm. I know our third line in the playoffs was the best line out of the four, with Milan, Sam Bennett, and Dylan Dubé. But I think Josh Levo could be a really good penalty killer. He could definitely play on the third line with Bennett and Dubé and be, really good and bring some speed and stuff into the lineup. So that's what I really like about Josh Levo. He can definitely bring some more consistency to the bottom six, and you're definitely not having that, kind of dud in there. It's like, oh great, what's he gonna do? You're gonna get a good strong effort from Josh Levo every night.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think you can make the same argument there for a guy like Joakim Nordstrom coming over from Boston. He's another guy that I don't think his offensive upside isn't as high as Levo's, but in terms of killing penalties, throwing the body around, taking one for the team, I think that's definitely something the Flames definitely could use a little bit more of heading into the playoffs this last season. So, Like, what are your thoughts on Nordstrom, and what do you think he's going to do for the Flames this year?
He's kind of close to Josh Leivo. Obviously, you said not the upside on the offensive side, but he's been around winning, and that's what I think the Calgary Flames have lacked a lot, is having players who have been around winning. And Nordstrom comes from Boston. We know Boston, they're a winning organization, so he's been around that. And I once again think he can be a really good penalty killer, alongside some guys like, Elias Lindholm, Josh Leivo, and guys like that. And another note on Nordstrom is he's extremely good buddies with Elias Lindholm and Jacob Markstrom. So that's why I think he was brought in. Another reason why I think Markstrom took less to come to Calgary is because I'll see on social media and stuff that those three are out like fishing, golfing, doing all that stuff together. So I think that's a really good locker room kind of chemistry, might go way up, and they'll be able to bond easier with the other guys too in the room. So I think that makes coming to a new team way easier when you got that kind of connection with some of the players already on the team.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't make those connections, but no, it's a really good thing, because I think a lot of people, especially fans that just watch the on-ice product, a lot of the times the stability and the state of the locker room and how that will affect the team's performance on the ice, it goes completely over people's heads. And that's a really good point to make, because I know, like, you look at the teams this last season who had such a tight room. You look at the Columbus Blue Jackets; they're a very together team, and I think that just showed on their on-ice performance. You could see guys that were going to battle for each other, and I think it was the exact same thing for the St. Louis Blues when they won the Cup, not last year, but the year before, and you could just definitely see how tight they were off the ice, which really improved their level of play on the ice, which eventually led them to win that Stanley Cup. So I guess you're hoping the same thing happens here for the Flames.
Yeah, no, that's huge. You need everyone going on your team to win a cup. You need four lines. You need 6 defensemen, 6-7 defensemen.
Yeah.
And you need everyone to be good, but you need everyone to pitch in. Some guys aren't going to go, some guys are. But when you have that tight-knit locker room, guys are going to be, like you said, battling for each other and wanting to win for each other. If, someone's banged up or something, the top guys are banged up, the bottom guys are like, yeah, we want to fight for these guys because how much have they've given, and we want to give just as much to help them out. So.
No, definitely. And so they also brought in Dominic Simon from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this is another guy that's been around a winning organization for a decent amount of time. So yeah, there's definitely a theme kind of popping up here for the Flames and their acquisitions, eh?
Yeah, no, Alex Simon's a very good player. I know he's played for a couple Czech national teams and stuff, and he's done well. And he's played with Crosby. He's played with Jake Gensel, I believe, on lines together.
Yeah.
And he's put up some numbers. He hasn't put up, the top numbers that you would expect from those guys, but I don't know how consistent it was. Playing time, I haven't really looked into that with playing with those guys, but he's definitely a goal scorer, and he's definitely a guy you can add on your second power play unit to get you some goals on the power play. And something we were kind of lacking was that second unit on the power play, so he could definitely fill in there and hopefully help that unit out.
Yes, certainly. And so with these guys that they brought in, that means some guys were going to lose their spots in the lineup, and we're going to evidently just sign with other teams. The two guys, Travis Hamonic, he actually hasn't signed with another team yet, but he's a guy on the market. For me, Hamonic was never like a true top 4 defenseman, but he was a guy that could come in, he could kill penalties, he'd do what he'd ask them to do. He was a really good team guy, but Tanev certainly is an upgrade there. And then Cam Talbot, he looks to be getting a starting role again in Minnesota. So, of course, he played quite well for the Flames this year, but just wasn't quite what they needed. So hopefully things will go for him in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Cam was fantastic, as you know, in that series against Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
He was amazing.
That's good.
But you notice with Talbot is he's always had these years. He has that 1 year with the Oilers when they made that run where he was really good, and then after that he kind of just dropped off a little bit. And he came to Calgary, and he found it, and he was the one guy late in the season before the shutdown, he was the guy just about every night. And he performed well, so I do hope he does really well in Minnesota. And he's definitely got a chance to, start 50, 60 games with the Wild. So, really good guy, and I hope he does well in Minnesota, that's for sure.
Yeah, and another thing I just thought of too is he's going to be going, like, obviously Minnesota is going to be a smaller market, so there should be less pressure on him. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know if it's a pressure thing. I know some goalies mentally, it's just such a puzzle, right? Like some guys, goalies in a certain market, they're not quite living up to what people want them to, and then they move on, and then they just completely blossom, or vice versa. It's such an interesting game when it comes to the mindset of a goaltender.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And, like I said, all the best to the Cam in Minnesota. I hope he does well. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And so now we're going to go on to like one of the big topics. This is something that, especially during the playoffs the last couple of years, that's really come into mind for me, is the Flames' current core, the two guys that they've been building around to try and make that run to win the Stanley Cup, Jonathan Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. They're the core in Calgary. My biggest question is, are they a core that can help win you a Stanley Cup?
And that's the $1 million question in Calgary. It gets thrown around a lot. I know Eric Francis from Sportsnet tries to run Johnny out of town just about every article I see. And my opinion on the whole thing is I don't think it's Johnny. They asked Sean to try to change his game a little bit to be more defensive, and I think that really hurt Sean in playing with Johnny and producing those offensive numbers that they did produce in the regular season last year when they got knocked out by Colorado in 5. But I don't think he's that guy to center Johnny Gaudreau and play with Gaudreau. I think there might be a trade in the works with Sean. As much as I love the guy, he's been nothing but good for the Flames, but I just don't know if he's the guy to run with Johnny Gaudreau. I think it's going to be – there was talks with Brad Treliving. He made I think it was like a Zoom meeting or something a couple days ago, and he was saying they're wanting to get Elias Lindholm at center ice and move him off the wing and move him to center ice. So to me, I feel like he's going to be playing with Johnny Gaudreau, and I think Matthew Tkachuk goes to that top line if there is something in the works. If not, we'll see. But I think Lindholm's the number one center on this team.
Yeah, and that's such a good point to make because, it's the tough part is like first line centers, like high level elite first line centers, they don't grow on trees, and more often than not, you have to draft and develop. And so, that was one of my biggest talking points whenever I've come to this conversation. And I look at it and I feel like I agree with you, Monahan, because in his earlier years, you could see the offensive upside. He scored some insane goals, and he looked like he could definitely become like an 80-point center. And then it just definitely the points started to drop off a little bit, and it just more and more to me it looked like he was becoming that second line center more than a first line. And so it would actually make sense to bring over. Move Lindholm to center, bring Tkachuk up onto that first line, as I feel like he's a guy that you probably want to have playing with Gaudreau because he's going to take a lot of attention away from Gaudreau. Tkachuk's going to play physical. People aren't going to want to mess with him as much, which means not going to want to mess with Gaudreau nearly as much because they know Tkachuk's going to come and like hand it to them in return. So that definitely, to me, that makes good sense for the Flames to take that route. And we'll see where that goes. But as it stands right now, like I really don't think the core of both Gaudreau and Monahan can get the job done for the Flames.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. So we'll see where that goes because you look at it, if you don't trade Monahan and you want to run that top line of Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk, you're looking at Sean Monahan and Michael Backlund competing for that number 2 center. And you really want Michael Backlund's contract sitting down there on the third line, even though he would be great down there. That's like $5 million
of a third line
money sitting on your third line. So that's a tough call because I don't know what Backlund's if he's got a no move clause or what that is. But it'll be interesting to see because I know Monahan's kicks in next year, so we'll see.
So this would certainly be the year to move him because you don't want that clause to kick in and then try to say, oh, we want to trade you now, because then it's going to become more difficult. And that's a good point about Backlund. Like I personally view Backlund as more of a true second line center myself. It's really hard for me to see him being used as solely a third line center if you're the Flames. Like, it just doesn't make too much sense, especially with that cap hit, right? And so, the next talking point was, will the signings of Markstrom and Tanev be enough to get them over the hump? Well, we've already kind of addressed with the core, it might not be, it might not, but I would say they probably give them more of a fighting chance to make it longer, like make a longer run in the playoffs and not be out in the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the thing is, knowing you have a backstop back there in Jacob Markstrom can sometimes allow teams to, play more offensively and play more freely, knowing you have a guy, an elite goaltender back there in Jacob Markstrom. So I think that definitely helps your confidence. I know that did in hockey too. When I knew we had someone back in net who could stop the puck, I know I didn't have to, every time come back 200 feet, even though that's what you're supposed to do. It's sometimes nice knowing you have that guy back there. So I definitely think for a confidence standpoint, that'll definitely help.
Yeah, certainly. I totally agree with that. Like you see those teams where when their goalie is hot, those teams seem like so unbeatable. Like look at Bennington for St. Louis in that run. It got to the point where Bennington looked unbeatable, and you could just see how the rest of the team was playing fast and loose. And it got to the point where nobody's going to stop them. Like nobody's beating Bennington. And sure enough, they beat out the Bruins in, what was it, 5 games to win the Stanley Cup? 5
or 6 games. Yeah.
Like the Boston Bruins, who many people pegged to win the cup. And it was just like, damn, these guys are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely helps having that guy back there stopping pucks for you.
Certainly.
That's for sure.
And so the last point I want to make last question, talking point. So will Sam Bennett, Andrew Mangiapane, and Dylan Dubé be consistent enough this season to provide a deep bottom 6 for the Calgary Flames to try and push for a Stanley Cup?
That's another really good question because they got Mangiapane at a really good deal. They got him at, I believe, $2.4 million for a couple years. Yeah. They still got the RFA rights on him for when that contract expires, so that's nice to have. He's shown a lot of promise through the last year or two with the Flames, so I definitely think he's there. The thing is with Sam Bennett, he's been so inconsistent. Yeah, and sometimes he hasn't been given that opportunity to really play. I think he really excels at center ice. Don't get me wrong, if we get playoff Sam Bennett for 82 games,
it changes the look so much.
Yeah, no, that'll help so much because remember he was a fourth overall pick.
Yeah.
When the Flames took him, so he has that potential to really be good. And I think same with Dylan Dubé. I think if those two could play like they did in the playoffs, I think that makes for a really good third line, and you're not paying much at all for it either. No. So I think that's really, I think that'll be a really strong point of the team. So I'm not really worried as much about that area than I am with the core top group with the Flames. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, and the thing is with those guys, especially specifically like Mangiapane and Dylan Dubé, those two guys, they're incredible skaters. When they're rolling and they don't stop, it's very hard to keep up for defenders, right? And I think that's something I expected from Dylan Dubé, right? Because for us being fans of the Western Hockey League, we've had a chance to see Dylan Dubé live, and I think there was never a game where he wasn't moving his feet and impressing every single fan and coach with his elite skating ability. And so it's really nice to see him showcase that for the Calgary Flames in the NHL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was the biggest thing because we know how fierce that Kamloops-Kelowna rivalry is. And, I hated to, see how successful he was in Kelowna, but at the same time in the back of my head, my dad would always tell me, just remember, he's going to be in Calgary in a couple years. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's tough, but he was excellent in Kelowna, and he's definitely gotten the opportunity in Calgary, and he's really run with it. So that's awesome to see.
Well, and certainly got to be cool for you being able to see him so many times during that rivalry. But now it's like you're going to see him a lot in Calgary now. So you see the full projection almost, it seems, for his development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's awesome to see guys translate from junior hockey into the NHL, especially seeing them live so much. I hope that's the same with Connor Zary too, with the Flames getting him at pick 24. That was awesome. I was sitting there watching that draft, and it was like, okay, I think we're taking him. And then we trade back twice and get 2 third-round picks. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at all these teams. I mean, they don't need a center. They don't need a center. So, and then we ended up taking Zary. So we'll hopefully that pans out, and we'll see what happens with him in the World Junior selection too. So best of luck to him on that.
Well, yeah, no, that's really good. And so I think we've essentially covered everything that we wanted to talk about for the Flames. This year, I mean, it's likely going to be a shortened season for the NHL. I mean, the divisions, it's not totally clear what the divisions will look like, but where do you think, let's just go based off of what we know right now for the divisions. Where do you see Calgary potentially finishing near the end of this season?
I definitely think with the acquisitions we've made, we'll be in the playoffs this year. I don't think that'll be in question. I think if you're looking at the whole, like the division structure we know, the Central, Pacific, all that stuff, I definitely think we can be a 2-3 in the Pacific Division, depending on how other teams play. I'm expecting like the 3rd seed and probably the top wild card. I'm expecting that out of this team. And you know what? Who knows? They could surprise me. They did last year when they were the best team in the West. No one expected them to be that good. Right. And, they were. But, I expect them to be around that 3rd spot in the Pacific, number 1 wild card spot, because there's a lot of good teams in the West. So it'll be interesting to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's certainly right around where I had them pegged as well. And one thing that really stuck out to me, because I mean, like I've been following this division pretty closely leading up to this episode, and we've done our Canucks and Oilers breakdown already, and just kind of looking at how the Pacific Division is lined up. I mean, really, those California teams are pretty hurting, right? So I don't expect California teams to really be competing for any real playoff spot. But like the Canucks, the Oilers, and the Flames, they all look like they're certainly going to be potentially a lock for 2nd and 3rd, and then you throw Vegas into that conversation as well. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's hard for me to say exactly how high, like what the highest spot is for the Flames to achieve, whether it's like 1st or 2nd, because I really feel like it's going to be very, very, very close from 1st to 4 in the division for the Pacific.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think we got those 4 teams locked in, Vegas, and then the 3 Western Canadian teams. Unless randomly one of those California teams comes out of nowhere. I don't see Arizona doing much either. They're so iffy too. I think we got the top 4 solidified in that Pacific Division, and that's all depending on, like you said, what happens with the division alignment and what goes on with that too. So we'll have to see what they do with the return to play policy.
Absolutely. And honestly, like, I'm really looking forward to this season, and especially like with the idea that was popped out there of getting a full Canadian division. I was like, for a second, I'm like, I don't know. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I'm like, this would be sick to have every single Canadian team playing within a division. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I know I certainly am 100% open to the possibility of having an all-Canadian division next season.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. It'll be tough too, because there's a lot of good Canadian teams.
Oh yeah.
You look at the Canadian teams in the West, and none of those 4 teams are a bad team or a cakewalk when you play them. I know Winnipeg was tough for us in the qualifying round. They dealt with injuries, obviously. Scheifele, Laine was out too. So that's definitely tough for them. They got to get that deep core worked out, but won't get into that right now. And then you look at the East Montreal. They pose a threat. They can always be good. The Leafs are the Leafs, so we'll see where that takes us. And then Ottawa's adding some pieces too. So
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of interesting things to go on in that Canadian division.
Well, and of course we'll get deeper into these teams later on, but I mean, I'm looking at Ottawa and then I'm looking at Montreal. Both those teams have had insane off seasons, so we'll definitely see what they end up doing. We'll break into that later on. But now I think we've summed this up. We're going to go over, open up Cap Friendly, and we're going to show the roster that we've come up with for if we were acting as if we were the GMs of the Calgary Flames. So we'll open that up. And there we are. So, all right, so what we have here, so like we said earlier in the podcast, the Flames were sitting at just slightly over $1 million in cap space. Got a good plethora of picks. So what I've done is I've traded Derek Ryan in a 2022 fifth-round pick to the Boston Bruins for a 2021 fourth-round pick and a 2022 third-rounder. Derek Ryan, I mean, he's the center depth for like this. Okay, the center depth in Calgary is really deep right now. Derek Ryan's making slightly over $3 million. I wanted to give that spot to Sam Bennett, so I moved him out, brought in some decent picks, and then I've also traded Dave Riddick to Buffalo along with a 2021 fifth rounder for a fourth rounder in 2022 and a third rounder in 2023. Ultimately, I wasn't entirely wanting to trade Dave Riddick, but I was looking at the cap. I wanted to acquire another top six forward for the Flames. And so as a result, the cap wasn't really helping me out. So I shipped him off to Buffalo as they could use some goaltending assistance. And so I used that available cap space to sign Eric Haula to a $2.95 million contract for 1 year. And I like him because he's pretty versatile. He can play left wing and center. And so this is ultimately what I'd come up with. So Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, we kept them as the core. Of course, we've been talking about how that core might not be good enough to win a Stanley Cup or to really make it far. But I also wanted to just give Sean Monahan that chance, given the acquisitions and the signings that the Flames have made. Plus, on top of that, he's making $6.3 million for 3 years. So you're not paying him like. If you were paying him Tyler Seguin money, he's making over $9 million, then be like a little worried. But I think this is good. And we brought Matthew Tkachuk onto that right wing. Now the second line here is going to be Eric Haula, Michael Backlund, and Elias Lindholm. I feel like this is a very good second line. We got some very defensive-minded players here that also bring like a good skating ability and can drive play and create some offensive chances. I think that line could be potentially hard to play against. Now we're looking at the third line. We got Milan Lucic, Sam Bennett, and Andrew Mangiapane. I really like this line. You got a good mix of experience, and you got two young guys that I would imagine are going to be incredibly hungry to continue to prove themselves this year. In that fourth line, we've got Dylan Dubé, Glenn Godden, and Josh Levo. And if you're the Flames and you're looking at a budget cut fourth line, I think this is probably as good as you could get. It's not a bad line. What do you think, Chris?
There's nothing wrong with that. I know Glenn Godden right now is over in, I believe, Europe, getting some time over there, so that'll really help his development. Mm-hmm. And you still got two guys too, Dominic Simone and Joachim Nordstrom, who can fill in the lineup too, depending on, say, matchups and who you're playing and who's going good, who's not going good. So they definitely have a lot of options there, and I think that's what Brad Treliving really wanted to do, was make sure there is options there, and your scratches aren't like Buddy Robinson and Zach Ronaldo, who you're throwing in there. It's just like, well, what are they going to really produce? Don't get me wrong, I love both those guys, but you got to look at it rationally, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And what I really like about this offense here is it really gives the Flames a lot of versatility, a lot of line combination options, opportunity for guys to move up and down. And when there's an injury, that you're not really going to notice it because there's a guy ready to move up in the lineup and then a guy in the press box who can fill in and fill the empty void, which is, we talk about winning a Stanley Cup. Like, those are extremely important aspects to it. If your team can't do that comfortably, then you're likely going to struggle. And you're not going to be as confident either. So we look at the defense. I mean, I think this defense is a huge improvement. Mark Giordano and Rasmus Andersson on that top pair, and Noah Hannafin, Chris Tanev on the second. What I really like about these two lines specifically is we got a really good mix of really good NHL veterans with a boatload of experience paired with two younger on the rise NHL defensemen. I think if you're the Flames, this is an excellent situation to be in. And then on the third pair, we got Juuso Välimäki, who, again, he's a former Dub guy. He played for the Tri-City Americans. I really liked him a lot there, and I know there was I think a couple injury troubles that had hindered his ability to really make it full time in the NHL. But I think this is a good look, and pairing them with Nikita Nesterov, who's been really rock solid in the KHL, and bringing him back on a basement level contract. I think you can't go wrong with it. And then obviously you got Alex Petrovic there in the scratches to come in when there is an injury. So
yeah, no, that's it's a good looking core. Nesterov could definitely provide a lot of good for us. I think he's getting him a second chance in the NHL could really be good. You know, I've been following him on social media and stuff. He seems really excited to be coming over here. I believe he was a captain too over in Moscow on his KHL team.
he was.
So he brings that along too. Playing with Juuso, who is also playing on a loan right now in Europe. I know I was watching some highlights of him, and he actually had the gold bucket on for most points over there, which is awesome to see. So he really looks like this extra time is doing well for him, because he's been battling with I believe it's knee injuries. So we didn't want to push him in the playoffs, because then we lose a year of his contract, and that exposes him to the Seattle expansion draft. So if we could keep him protected, get him 100% for this next upcoming season, nothing really wrong with it. So I really like how this decor is looking. So no complaints.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there's very little weaknesses in this defense. And then obviously for goaltending, like, we got Jacob Markstrom, that's the big grab. And then I have signed Craig Anderson to 2 years, making basically $950K. I feel like for a guy like Craig Anderson, yeah, he's a little bit older, he's 39, but to me, he's a guy that he hasn't really slowed down much. And if you're going to be giving him like backup minutes, I feel like you can't go wrong with this type of value contract if you're the Flames. And then you're hoping by then you'll have a goaltending prospect maybe ready to come up. I know Parsons, I mean, it might be a long shot for Parsons, but if he hits his strides, it could happen. You also got Dustin Wolf and Everett. I mean, he's an excellent goaltender. So we'll see how many years it takes for him. But that gives you a 2-year window to sort out your backup situation. And I think it's just a good no-brainer signing if you're the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you could make that Dave Ritter trade work, then yeah, definitely go for it. I know that's definitely not on the Flames, top priority, but definitely if you could make that happen, there is nothing wrong with adding a top 6 player, as we have in right now in Erik Haula, and adding a veteran goaltender, Craig Anderson, to back up Jacob Markstrom. He can definitely give, some good starts, maybe 15 or so games backing up. And like I said, yeah, he hasn't slowed down when he's been in Ottawa. He's been a really good goaltender there, but obviously they're going in a different direction for Ottawa. So yeah, no, he'd be a good guy to bring in, and I think he would really enjoy it in Calgary. So yeah, no complaints once again in goaltending.
Yeah, and another thing I really like about this is, Markstrom, because we saw in this last playoff run with the Canucks, he got down with an injury. And of course, Demko took over. So if similar situation, occurred for the Flames and they needed a guy to come in, I mean, they didn't seem very confident at all in Dave Ritter to really to play this year and when he needed to in the playoffs. And so Craig Anderson gives you that comfortable feeling where it's like, okay, if Markstrom goes down, God forbid, Anderson can take over and we're going to be fine, right? So I think overall this is going to look really good. And I mean, of course, these are just what we would do if we were the GMs of the Calgary Flames. Tree Living definitely has a different plan, so we'll see what he does now. There's still lots of time before next season and lots of options available. So, yeah, I think that is it. Is there anything else you'd want to add to this roster?
No, honestly, it looks pretty good. We've filled every need possible with also clearing some cap space. So, yeah, no, there's a lot of good depth on the bottom six. You still got Oliver Shillington too, who we do not have on here he's an RFA currently right now. So we'll see if Brad Treliving gets a signing done there, because he's a very smooth skater and an offensive defenseman. So he could definitely be that depth defenseman if, say, a guy like Chris Tanev or someone goes down with injury. And he honestly could have some value too in a trade, as he is a young player and has some upside too. So there's that as well. But other than that, yeah, no, this looks like a good roster going into the season. Yeah, hopefully it pans out.
Oh, for sure. And I think another thing I've just thought about, like with those trades, if you can pull off trades like these, I mean, look at this cupboard right here. You've got your first round, second round picks, but that leaves you in consecutive drafts. You got two third round picks, then you have 3 fourth rounders within like 2 years. So that, to me, really, if you're a Flames fan, like that's insane value if you can manage to pull that off. And yeah, so overall, I think the Flames are in a good spot.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. So yeah.
All right. So share. All right. So yeah, that was it for our Calgary Flames breakdown. And so now we're going to be moving on to our interview with Mason Mannek. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, just enjoy. So for me, I'm a Northern BC boy, born and raised in Prince George. I've been to the States once to go to Disneyland. Cool. So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah. So you've grown up in Utah. What was it like growing up playing hockey in Utah?
So actually, as the years went on, hockey grew and grew, and thankfully for me, the 2002 Olympics here helped out big time, because we have unbelievable facilities. Like, out of all the places I've been, like, we have super nice ones. So, like, it never was a huge thing here. Like, in elementary school, for instance, there was kids that didn't even know what hockey was. And so, with that being said, I've been pretty fortunate. Like, our coaches have always been awesome. But as far as playing hockey here, it was very small. And so it was kind of hard. And, like, I had to leave at 13 to go to Colorado. So the skill was never it was never super high, but as the years went on, like, it's growing, and now it's as big as it's ever been. It's pretty awesome to see. So.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you went to Denver. So did you go to Denver just to go for a higher level of hockey, to get more opportunity to be noticed and to make it further?
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of a crazy story, and I'm still like mind-boggled on how this all happened. But so I was playing in Utah, and we ended up playing against the Colorado Thunderbirds, which I don't know how familiar you are. That's who I ended up playing for, but they're a pretty well-known team in like the Western U.S. And so Adam Foote was our coach, longtime NHLer. And so we played against them, and they kind of smoked us. We're a smaller team, and he ended up calling my dad afterwards and like reached out and asked if I could go play there. And the next year, I decided this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to take hockey pretty seriously, and so I ended up living at his house. So I lived with Adam Foote for a year, and it was unbelievable. He has a boy that's my age, Nolan Foote. He's drafted first round in Tampa and now with New Jersey. But so he's like one of my best buddies. And so, from the age of 14, I was hanging out with guys like Adam Foote, Patrick Waugh, Joe Sakic on a daily basis. Like, it was absolutely insane.
Well, that's actually really cool. My next question was like, was there who did you look up to in the hockey world growing up? Well, it looks like you've had some excellent role models to grow up with. So out of those guys, I'd say like Adam Foote would be your guy, or? Yeah,
he'd easily be my number one, just because he was like my second dad for 3 years. And so, so he had a rink in his backyard, and I'm not kidding. Like, even like dinners, after dinner, we were always shooting pucks on the rink. He was just like pointers, like advice, everything. It was like hockey. And it was like the best thing for me, because I feel like at a really young age, I kind of learned what it took. like what it took to take the next step, which I, me being in Portland now, I had to give him huge credit because, he helped me. Is being from Utah, I knew what the WHL was. I didn't really know what it was about. And so with his boys both being in Kelowna, he kind of helped lead the way for that. But I mean, just like I said, like dinners, breakfast, car rides, everything was just learning. So I was pretty fortunate.
So that's really cool. And so you mentioned, you're in Portland. I tried to see if you were drafted. It looks like you weren't drafted. So
no, I wasn't.
So how did you know that the Portland Winterhawks were interested? Did you go to camp? Did they invite you? And were there other Western Hockey League teams interested?
Yeah, so that was my first year in Colorado as my drafter, and I had a pretty good year. And a couple of teams reached out, and I thought Calgary was going to be where I was going to end up. Mm-hmm. As far as drafts and everything, that's what I was hearing, was that Calgary was going to take me. And I remember the draft day like it was yesterday. Like it was the worst day of my, but like looking back now, I wouldn't have had it any other way. But so I thought I was going to end up in Calgary, and round goes on, and it ends. And there was so I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the states have like a state showcase. If you make it past your state showcase, right. Regionals, they're the nationals. So this was regional. So all my buddies from Colorado, we were all together. They were all getting drafted, and I didn't. And I remember just like crying afterwards. I was like, what's going on? So, but the moral of the story is that I didn't talk to Portland at all. I had zero contact with them at all. And then about a week later, they invited me to their camp. And honestly, I think the reason we chose Portland was strictly because it was closest to Utah.
Right.
And so we went to their camp, and it was the coolest experience of my life. Like I know Dominic Turgeon was playing, and I was like a huge Red Wings fan growing up. And so I know he was drafted by the Red Wings, and it was like so surreal to play against these guys. And I had a really good camp, and I got protected right at that camp. And so I've been with them since I was 14, and I just fell in love with the organization since then. Like I'm super thankful that I ended up where I am because, it's just like Portland's an amazing spot. It really is, especially for juniors. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, no, Portland's had an excellent track record for producing NHL prospects, and they've definitely been a hotbed for the Western Hockey League. And so that's why I just kind of want to tie into the next question. Like, obviously, your initial impression of the Winterhawks organization was definitely good. Who played the biggest role within the organization to really shape the player that you are now?
So I'd say, as of recent, our assistant coach, Don Hay, I have to give him full credit. We've spent countless time together, like whether that's video or whether I want to work on something, he's always helping me out. So he's been awesome. As far as a player, our captain my first year, Keone Teixeira, he kind of took me under his wing. He was awesome, man. He was one of those guys coming into it I knew quite a bit about. And so he was pretty intimidating. Like, I'm not going to lie, like, coming into it, he was one of those guys that I was kind of like, all right, don't make him mad, like just try to get on his good side. Yeah. And no, but he kind of took me under his wing, and he lived with the Bill family I lived with. He was there the year before, so we kind of had that in common. Right. And so that kind of helped like fuel the friendship, I guess. And we still talk to this day, and he helped me out big time, just kind of what to expect on and off the ice, how to handle yourself, stuff like that.
Oh, certainly. And that's something I noticed when I watched Keone Teixeira play as a Winterhawk, that he's definitely on the ice when he played. He had that presence about him where it's like you don't want to mess with him or his team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He was a great captain for us, for sure.
Oh, definitely. And that kind of also ties into my next question. So I saw in the highlights, I was going through all your highlights yesterday, and there's one particular where you took on Josh Mazer of the Prince George Flames. Yeah. And I remember like watching that game. Josh Mazer, like, pretty big hit on one of your teammates. I can't remember who it was, but then without hesitation, you jumped in and you were just ready to scrap. And I'm like, man, this guy has guts, because Mazer is a tank, right? So like that, like, was that just like instinct for you, or like was that just what you were asked of?
I'm kind of a smaller guy, right? So fighting was something, and I'll be honest, like this is kind of funny, and I don't know if my family's going to appreciate me saying this, but around Utah, we kind of got, like, that's kind of the name we have, is like the Mannek boys, right? It's like the Hanson brothers in Utah. So I kind of want to, like, I kind of felt like obligation to fulfill that with my name now that I have the opportunity. And so I always enjoyed it. And that was one I remember because I think it was Jared Frederick, if I remember correctly, got hit. It was a big hit.
Yeah.
And there was another guy that was kind of ready to fight him, I think, but I was like, no, I want it. Because the way I see it, man, is like, I'm smaller, and if I can't make an impact all the time on the score sheet, I got to find my way, right? And so I know Josh, he's a tough guy. He's a good player. And so I feel like that was kind of my time. You still got me here?
Yeah, I still got you.
Oh, there we go. That's kind of my time to kind of prove myself, I think. So I enjoy the challenge. I mean, I think you kind of have to do it at some point anyway. So I always enjoy fighting the bigger guys more too. Just it's good for me, good test.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that that character helped land you the A on your sweater last season, hey?
Yeah, I definitely think it did help. That's one thing too is like being good in the locker room. As I coming in from Utah, especially, is like I had no idea what to expect, and so I know as I get older, I have more of a voice, and I know these young kids. It's pretty scary thing to come into WHL,
Yeah.
And so anyway, I could help them, so like being good in the locker room and then just being a good example, man. Like it's simple, but that's what it takes.
Oh, certainly. So with you've played 3 years. Is it 4 years now in the Western Hockey that you've played?
3. This will be my 4th.
Right. So you played 3 years. You have a lot of experience. Can you share some of those experiences that you're really going to cherish as you move on to the next stage of your life from the Western Hockey League?
Yeah, so I'll take that back to my rookie year. It was my first playoff series against Spokane. And, man, it was nuts. It was like everyone always talks about the whole year. Like, you want to go to playoffs. You got to experience playoffs. And I'm like, you're like, yeah, okay. Like, how different can it really be? Like, it was insane. Like, I remember, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, regular season's like a 5 to 6. Playoffs is like a 12. Like, it is nuts. Like, the fans are crazy. Everyone's amped up, ready to go. And we went to 7. And so we played back. I want to say it was back-to-back nights. We lost in Spokane game 6. And so we drove to Tri-City because that's halfway for us. Stayed the night in Tri-City. And the most memorable other than the game was that bus ride from Tri-City to Portland was like the quietest 3 hours I've ever experienced. Like nobody said a word. Like it was like it was honestly like bone chilling. Like it was so like almost scary.
Yeah.
But like super excited, right? Like you always when you play, you don't want to like amp yourself up too early, right? Because that like mentally drain you by like third period or whatever. Yeah. It was impossible. Like we had lunch, nobody said a word. The bus ride, nobody said a word, and then thankfully we won that game and ended up playing ever the second round. But I mean, the game was crazy. I remember Kiefer Bellows, he scored. I think it was like a slap shot from the blue line, and that's kind of when we knew we had it. Right. And it was nuts. I've never seen Portland fans go that crazy in my life. It was unbelievable. So that's probably like the most memorable to date on ice experience.
Well, and like it's crazy too. Like I know from my experience, just the fans in the U.S. division are insane. Like they're super passionate, they're hardcore, and so there's a lot of really intense rivalries too, right? So, like, what do you think's been the most memorable rivalry that you've been with Portland in the U.S. division? Yeah,
so I'd say us and Spokane has always been good, just because 2 years in a row we played them in playoffs, and we won the first year, and they won our second year. But us in Seattle is hard to top. Like their fans, they just scream Portland sucks the whole time when we're in their building. They seem to sell out quite a bit, and when they're in our building, the games are always intense. They're usually always pretty close. There's always a good scrap, it seems like, and at least one every game. Like it's pretty fun.
So it's really cool. And so the Western Hockey League, it's a very hardworking league. You got to work hard for every chance you get, like to get the minutes. So how has that helped you? Because I see that you also have a business, Buck Tough, and I see you're wearing the hat right there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, thanks.
So throughout your time in the league, like what about the Western Hockey League has helped like prepare you connections wise and also just work ethic wise to be able to start your own business?
Yeah. Well, honestly, starting my own business was just kind of like I needed something to do, like away from the rink, because you play a lot of hockey, and so it's hard to go home and do more hockey. Like you need to get your head away from it to stay because when you go to the rink, like, you got to be 100%, right? So we were on our eastern swing up to Alberta. We were on the bus, and that's like 20 hours or something. And I was thinking, I was like, I wonder how hard it'd be to like start my own thing. And my family, we're pretty passionate like about hunting, fishing, outdoors and stuff. And so I talked to my dad, we got some ideas, and then actually Cross Hannes, he's a player on our team, he gave me the idea for the name. And I was like, dude, I really like that. And so, and then it just like, whenever I'm at the rink, I'm a hockey player. And that's the biggest thing is like, number one, I'm a hockey player. Like, I want to play NHL, you know, but this is just kind of fun. And it's also nice, you know, you have to rely on your parents for money and stuff. So,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they appreciated it.
I bet they do. And I think it's just really cool, right? Because it just shows like, you know, on and off the ice, you're always working hard, you're always hustling, and you're always just looking to keep busy.
Right. Yeah. That's all I do. My mom's the same way. So she, you know, the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
For sure. Well, and yeah, so, you know, this year, hopefully, you know, I mean, the season looks like it's going to happen with COVID. It looks like they're getting under control. So after this next season, you know, you said you want to potentially play pro. What's that looking like right now? Like, what paths are you looking to take to get there?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I don't really know for sure, because I think it's hard right now to judge with COVID, right? Because not a lot's happening. And so I'm just banking on me. Like, I'm ready to go for this year. Like, I feel physically strong. I'm mentally ready to go. It's been, I mean, by the time I get there, it'll be 9 months or something since we played a game. So,
right.
You know, I think I'm ready. I'm going to go have the best year I can, and hopefully something comes of it. But like, as of now, it's super open. Like, it's kind of scary to think about, and it's hard. Like, you try not to think about it a whole lot, but at the same time, like, it's definitely in the back of your head. So.
Well, certainly. So, you know, with your experiences in the Western Hockey League that you've shared, for anyone that's looking to take the next step in their hockey career, would you recommend the Western Hockey League, and why?
100%. I would. So I train here with. There's a pro group we have here, and two of the guys play NCAA, and they always ask me, "Why would you go to college? Why would you go to college?" But the WHL was so appealing to me, and Portland treated me so well that it was like a no-brainer. And I think nothing's changed. I think the way they treat us as players off the ice is incredible. Like, I feel like a pro. Like, I feel like an NHL player. You know, they treat us unbelievable. But I mean, on the ice, it gets a rap. So like, when I signed with Portland, I'm thinking the WHL is like this big bad bruiser league, which it is to a certain extent. I did not expect the skill. The skill is unbelievable. You know, you're playing against some of the best guys in the world. Like, my rookie year, Kiefer Bellows, first round pick, Cody Glass, first round pick, Henry Okiharu, first round pick, Skylar McKenzie was drafted, I believe 5th round, Brendan DeYoung drafted to Carolina, Dennis Chalowski, first rounder. Like, our first power play had 4 first round picks. Like, are you kidding me? It was insane. And so they get to play with like world class players like that. Like, the experience is second to none. Like, hands down, on the ice, you will. I don't know, like, other than the CHL, where you get that at this age.
Yeah, well, it's certainly incredible. Like, as a fan, like, I know, like, I've been watching junior hockey for basically my whole life, and you get to watch these high level players play as teenagers, develop, and then like a few short years later, you're watching NHL on TV, and you're like, it's like, I've watched that guy play.
Exactly, yeah. And I know I've talked to some Portland fans, and before I played there, my mom's pretty social, so she was talking to the fans, you know, because she wanted to make sure what this place was about before I went there. And my dad asked the question, "Oh, would you guys ever want like an NHL team here?" And they're like, "No, like, we love the juniors. We love watching the kids grow up and develop here." And it's true. At first, I was kind of like, "Really, you want an NHL?" But like, as I play here, I 100% believe it. Like, it's pretty incredible to see.
Well, yeah, they're fans. Like, Portland, from my experience on like some talk pages, Portland has some of the most best fans in the Western Hockey League. Like, it's awesome. It's definitely a treat to play for them, I think.
100%. They show up every night. Like, weekend games are like, we fill most of the building pretty much every game, and we have pretty big rinks, and so it's always loud. I think everyone always enjoys playing in Portland, and our facilities are incredible. Like, the Moda Centers to play there is it's
nice.
something else, man. It's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's all of my questions. I thank you so much for coming on. This was really an awesome interview. And yeah, I would love to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, always. I'm always open to it. I appreciate you reaching out. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And yeah, so that was our interview with Mason Mannek of the Portland Winterhawks. I thought it was excellent. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for tuning in this week. And thank you, Chris, for coming on and filling in and giving us your expertise about the Flames.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure having you guys having me on. Had a good time. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to what grows on this channel. That's for sure. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome, and thanks for coming on again. And yeah, so tune in next week. We'll be doing our Winnipeg Jets breakdown, and hope to see you guys there. Remember to subscribe on YouTube, to follow us on Instagram, and to like our Facebook. Bye for now.